Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Orthodoxy, Fact or Fiction. Now, over the years, I've received quite a number of questions about the funeral process in an Orthodox church. What are my options? How is a funeral conducted? Who can be buried in the Orthodox church? So I wanted to take a little bit of time out to answer those questions. So let's start out with the eligibility question first. Number one, the person who wishes, or the family that wishes to have an Orthodox funeral, that person should have been a member, at least in a spiritual sense, of the Orthodox faith. What I mean is that that person has proclaimed the Orthodox faith. They're not saying, well, I was Catholic or I was Protestant, but now I want to be buried in the Orthodox Church. There has to be some connection with the Orthodox Church. Next is the presence of a body. So in order to conduct an Orthodox funeral service, we have to have a body. So this then takes cremation off the table, but cremation I'll discuss in another video. Now this also brings me to another important point. In America, we have this kind of obsession with the idea that I must obey the wishes of my whoever, father, mother, brother, sister, whatever it is. Sometimes those wishes are contrary to the Orthodox faith. What I want you to know is that if you feel that it is the proper intention of the person, you do not have to obey those wishes. Most of the time where this happens, and in fact, it happened in my case, my father had wished to be cremated. And I had said to him, I'm not going to follow your wishes. So don't get trapped in this idea that you have to follow the wishes of the deceased, all right? Many times what will happen is if you follow those wishes, later on there is regret that will happen within the family. If the person was an Orthodox Christian and you knew that they were an Orthodox Christian, but later in life there was some other issues that maybe caused some confusion in that, dementia, Alzheimer's, things like that, you can still obey the wishes of the church and obey that person's original wishes and then have an Orthodox funeral for that person. So I thought that that was important to hear. So now let's talk about the options. What options do I have as an Orthodox Christian for burial? Well, actually, you have four options available to you. The first one is the standard Orthodox burial. Basically, this is something that probably all of you are very familiar with. So the person dies, the body is brought to the church, and then we conduct the funeral service, and then we go to the cemetery. By the way, interesting note here, as was the case with my father, I did not, and my mother did not want him to be embalmed. Embalming is not a requirement in any way. And for me personally, I thought it was a much more, and I don't want to say pleasurable experience, but it was a nicer experience to feel the softness of my father when I gave him that farewell kiss. So just know that embalming is not a requirement. Now, with a standard Orthodox burial, you are also then allowed to have what we call an environmental burial. Nothing in the Orthodox Church stops us from doing that. So there are many now ecological options that are open. You can be buried in a shroud, you can be buried in a wicker basket, or there are many organizations now or businesses that will actually construct the old style toe pincher or the traditional style coffin that is emblazoned then with the Orthodox writings, whether in Greek or in the Slavic. So it doesn't have to just be a casket. It can be any one of the green options as long as there is a body then available for burial. Now, the second option is a burial at a national cemetery. So in the case of my father, he was a veteran of World War II. I'm also an Army veteran myself. So my father was buried at a national cemetery as I will be buried. That also extends to the spouse. So presbítero will also then join me at a national cemetery. Now the beauty of that is the fact that you will have perpetual care. because it is the United States government that will always then take care of the grounds. It is a wonderful service. Not only do you have then the Orthodox funeral service, the beauty of that, but then you also have the beauty of the Honor Guard and the Patriot Guard that will offer then their final farewells to their fallen comrade. So it's a very, very beautiful thing. However, in order to do that, you must have what is called the DD-214. That is the military discharge papers, and the person should have received then an honorable discharge from any branch of the military, to include the Merchant Marine and the Coast Guard. And of course, that includes the new Space Command. The third option is burial at sea. Now, most of the times you think of a naval officer or a Coast Guard or a Merchant Marine having this traditional burial at sea. And certainly that can be done. The Orthodox funeral service can be performed, and then we can take that person, and then there can be a military burial at sea. What a lot of people don't necessarily know is that you can also have a burial at sea even for a layperson. In fact, recently I was made aware of a layman who was actually buried at sea. He loved boats, he had a ship, and this is something that he loved. So that can be coordinated. It's a little bit more difficult than a military burial at sea, but that can be accommodated. Again, there's a body, the church will conduct the funeral service, and then we would go out in the boat, and as long as state and federal regulations are abided to, there can be then a burial at sea. Now, for sure, that is different than from spreading the ashes out at sea, but I said I would talk about cremation later. The last option is donate your body to science. But this is a little bit more difficult than you might think. I mean, when you speak about donating your body to science, the question is, what does that mean? The Orthodox Church does not necessarily have an issue with donating your body to science, with the proviso that the remains will be returned to the Orthodox Church so that a proper burial can be conducted. The Orthodox Church has nothing against, let's say the person dies from some type of disease and the doctors want to find out what this was. We can certainly allow then a piece of the skin or the brain or something like that to be examined. But the body then is returned to the church at some point, whether that's a month or a year or something like that, so that we can conduct the funeral service. You're probably thinking then to yourself, well, wait a minute now, is an autopsy then allowed by the Orthodox Church? Absolutely. Now, it has to be for good reason. What the Orthodox Church frowns upon and rejects is any type of disgrace that is brought upon the body. If we're doing an autopsy just for the sake of doing it, the Orthodox Church is going to reject that. If there's a criminal action or there's some type of disease and they need to know, then the Orthodox Church is fine with that. I mean, we don't want your body donated so it can be used as a piñata or something like that. What we're looking for is that there will be valuable evidence and information that will promote the cause of science. So it must be used in a respectful manner. So these are the options that are available to you for a funeral service in the Orthodox Church. In my next video, I'm going to talk about the funeral rite process itself and the 4 distinct parts of the Orthodox funeral service.